1:30 p.m. Eastern today and translated at C-SPAN in Washington. It's 30 minutes.
You're watching primetime news of Radio Television Serbia. Respected viewers, President of the Republic, Slobodan Milošević, held today a meeting with the highest officials of the country. They discussed the most important questions regarding the interests of the civilian population and defense from the aggression. It was noted that despite the great difficulties caused by incessant bombing, the economic system in the country continues to be vitally functioning, that transport and public services continue to function, as well as the civil defense units. With the dedication, we try to repair the damages from the destruction in order to normalize life as soon as possible. It was also noted that the measures in the area of finance secure exchange rate and financial stability. The National Bank of Yugoslavia is undertaking measures in order to collect all of the public revenues so that they can secure the payment of salaries and retirements. They also spoke about the special economic program of the government for assistance to the workers whose job places have been destroyed. It was also noted that there is general peace in Kosovo, except for the NATO bombing. Two contrary actions are taking place. While on the one hand, our government bodies are working on normalizing the situation, humanitarian assistance and return of the refugees to their homes. On the other hand, we have daily and nightly bombardments by NATO. Last night's attack of NATO over the refugees near Suva Reka, who were coming back home after the declared safety, and where 56 civilians were killed, primarily women and children, and several dozen more were wounded, is one more in the series of crimes. These attempts at justifying and legalizing such crimes is a direct threat to the world peace. The war in Yugoslavia is essentially NATO's bombing of civilian population. The international community should know that the end of this bombing would bring an immediate peace to Kosovo. Obviously, NATO wants to prevent the return of the refugees to their homes under the auspices of our country, because that would be something contrary to their goals, because they try to use the refugees to justify this aggression, despite the fact that the mass waves of refugees were directly caused by NATO bombing. The UN, in accordance with its charter, has to stop this war immediately and without any dilemmas, and finally take upon itself its own role and secure the peace in the Yugoslav area so that all outstanding questions regarding Kosovo can be resolved by political means and peacefully, which has been continually unreservedly supported by our country. The enemy air force, throughout last night's attacks on the villages in Kosovo, hit civilians near Korisha. 56 died. More than 100 are injured. There are fears that there were many casualties, because these are a column of refugees who are fleeing NATO bombs by moving towards Albania. Around 100 innocent civilians were killed and 100 more were wounded in a beastly attack by NATO near Korishe in the Prizren area. This happened just after midnight, when the refugees were returning to their homes after several days of hiding in the surrounding forests because of the fear of the NATO bombardment. The refugee column, primarily composed of women and children, around 500 of them, were attacked with at least 6 laser-guided missiles of great destructive capacity close to the villages of Zehince, Mahala and Kabesh, which was only a few kilometers away. According to eyewitnesses, the raid began around midnight and lasted for almost 3 hours, which clearly tells of NATO's intentions to inflict maximal civilian damage. Over there, across the road. I don't know how many tractors. There were mostly women and children, right? Children for the most part. What can I tell you? Only, for example, with my brother. I had my brother there, his son, daughter-in-law, 3 young girls. His other son is in Slovenia working there. All the rest of the people were children in that group. The oldest one was about 16 or 17. The youngest one was like a year and a half. We went to sleep, and all of a sudden, the whole sky was lit up. An explosion, great explosion, another one, and another one, and we began running towards the fields, and a fourth one. And then 3 people were left from that group dead in the grass. We were running all the way down, and then it stopped. Around Prizren I saw more explosions. Don't ask me. Certainly until 3 o'clock in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. First aid to the refugees was given by the Army and the Police Force of Yugoslavia, as well as by the emergency teams from the medical center in Prizren. All heavily injured refugees were taken to the Prizren hospital and given medical care. During this attack, NATO used cluster bombs again, intended to kill people and forbidden by all international conventions. It was shown that NATO aggressors used the Albanian people only as gun fodder in order to justify further military actions in Kosovo. The news on the latest NATO massacre over Kosovo Albanians near the village of Korisha in Kosovo swept the world, while the alliance, as usual in these situations, supports what they're saying is investigating this event. The world public knows that this is not just a matter of simple mistakes, but a genocide over the people of Yugoslavia. Moscow condemned the latest killing of Albanian refugees in Yugoslavia. The killing of peaceful civilians has shown once again the aggressive nature of NATO's intervention in Yugoslavia, stressed the representative of Foreign Affairs Ministry. It's time to stop the bombing of Yugoslavia and seek a political solution of the crisis in the Balkans, warned this Russian diplomat, adding that the first step in that direction would be a halt in the bombing. NATO neither confirms nor denies the bombing of the column of refugees near Korisha that killed over 50 and wounded at least 50 more near Prizren. They asked for a thorough investigation as soon as possible, as stated by the official NATO spokesperson in Brussels, in anticipation of more reliable information. Electronic media in Brussels reported on the barbaric attack near Prizren, stressing that it was mostly women and children that were hit. NATO briefing report today notes that 679 sorties were conducted last night, with strongest attacks concentrated around Prizren. They claim to have attacked tanks and armored units, as well as ground forces, without mentioning any civil casualties. Pentagon also reports that last night saw the greatest number of sorties since the beginning of the aggression, mostly concentrated in Kosovo. This has been a notable day, stated a NATO general from the US, adding that most attacks focused on the area of Prizren, precisely the site of the civilian massacre. With great hypocrisy, US TV stations report the statements of Hillary Clinton, who is visiting Macedonia, where she, with a voice full of sadness, talks of being so moved by refugees, while the same media have barely noted the massacre by NATO over several hundred civilians in Kosovo. Without any video material, CNN just noted a brief report of its Belgrade correspondent Brett Sadler, who said that if confirmed, this would be the greatest loss of human lives so far. CNN fails to mention the fact that the Albanian civilians were trying to return to their homes when NATO prevented them by creating this horrible slaughter. The electronic media, who are striving to show NATO's aggression as much possibly as a benign action, and as they morbidly call it, a clean action, did not report on this latest massacre of the Albanian civilians, whom NATO hypocritically claims to protect. In a clearly propaganda manner, the wife of the Washington leader is visiting the refugees in Albania, which fits the ongoing efforts of the White House to exploit the problem of the refugees in order to manipulate the public in the US, which, as recognized, is growingly skeptical about what Clinton and his top associates are doing on Kosovo. Most Western news agencies are silent over what appears as the single greatest crime against civilians in this war near the village of Korisha. But the France Press reporter came to the site of the attack among the first ones to send the horrible images of the suffering of innocent civilians. The French agency reports that there were many children, and the reporter counted in prisoners' mortuary 48 bodies hit by the terrible and forbidden cluster bombs. The reporter notes a doctor who mentions that he personally saw 61 seriously injured persons. France Press cites the statement of one of the survivors of several hundred refugees, Feriz Ametai, who says that at least there are 100 people dead. President of the Interim Executive Council of Kosovo, Zoran Anđelković, stated that today's crime in Korish, where Albanians live, is one more beastly act against the civilian population in Kosovo. The Yugoslav left coalition stresses that NATO has disclosed its evil face again. They attacked the area of village of Korisha, a column of Albanian refugees who were trying to hide from the aggressor bombs. Hundreds of women, children and old people were hit by the missiles of the NATO Samaritans, who allegedly began this war in Yugoslavia to help them. The Yugoslav Left Coalition condemns this act of the NATO fascists and stresses NATO needs neither the Albanians nor the citizens of Yugoslavia, but the territory of our country for their hegemonistic strategic interests. Therefore, every Yugoslav and international peace initiative, every positive step by our country, such as the decision on the withdrawal of our forces from Kosovo, or the release of the prisoners of war, or the return of the refugees, causes new panic in Brussels and Washington, and new crimes such as the beastly killing of our citizens from Albanian Kosovars near Prizren. We demand an immediate end of the bombing and a political solution. The criminal alliance attacked today the area of Pristina. 2 missiles of high destructive power hit the suburb of Dragodan, purely Albanian. NATO Armada also attacked Peć, the county of Štimlje. Then they hit with 4 missiles the village of Petrović in the county of Uroševac. They hit the village of Balić. The aggressor alliance this morning also attacked the area of Užica. They also bombed the county of Kruševac. Kruševac today between 2:15 and 2:35 for a 6th time a target of the NATO Air Force. After about 20 minutes of flying over Kruševac, they targeted Kruševac Trial Corporation with 2 missiles. Firefighters and emergency rescue teams are at the site. Today at noon, the criminal alliance for a 4th time attacked with missiles the area of Pirot. Between 12:05 and 12:15, they hit the area with several strong missiles. You could hear a lot of explosions despite the anti-aircraft units of Yugoslavia. 2 missiles could be first heard close to the suburb Tanas Brajic, where shrapnel also damaged the roofs, windows, doors. Fortunately, there were no human casualties. The planes of the criminal alliance once again attacked the bridges on the highway Belgrade-Niš near Jagodina. At 1:35 p.m., several missiles simultaneously hit the bridge over Lugomir and the left-hand side of the bridge on Velika Morava between Jagodina and Ćuprija. Only thanks to our anti-aircraft missiles, they didn't have time to act more precisely. The bridges have not been destroyed, but they cannot be used for traffic. 2 missiles that grazed the bridge ended up in a field. Fiber optic connections are broken, so the telephone lines between Ćuprija and Paraćin are operating with difficulties. While we were there on the site, NATO planes once again were flying over the area, but they did not attack this time. The enemy air force of NATO today with 9 missiles hit the bridges on Toplica River. They attacked the area of Arilje. The deadly missiles of great destructive power were also dropped on the suburb of Donji Sinkovac near Leskovac. Several missiles hit the area of Kragujevac near the monument Šumarice. Dark day for unmanned aircraft of the aggressor. Anti-aircraft units of Pristina Corps downed 3 unmanned planes and hit a combat plane A-10 above Đakovica, which probably fell in Albania. We recorded the downing of one of these unmanned aircraft, which are hit routinely by our anti-aircraft units. This one was downed above Uroševac. This is an extra light aircraft of the 57th Wing of the U.S. Air Force and the 15th Reconnaissance Brigade. This unmanned plane of the Predator type is made in the U.S. It's an expensive system, costing about $2 million. The aggressor is paying obviously high price for the bombing of our country. It can fly independently as a plane. It is one of the biggest unmanned planes with wing diameter of about 14 meters. The engine was almost intact. It's equipped with expensive instruments above this: TV camera for daytime reconnaissance, laser measuring device, anti-detection unit, and instrument for relay of the collected data. We located a video recorder with a tape inside with some material. The downing of this plane is a great loss for NATO. At Mokra Gora, we hit another unmanned aircraft produced in June 1985 in the Boeing company. It fell apart during the downing. The turbojet engine is intact. The reservoir has a lot of fuel within. This craft has wings that adjust according to speed and weight. The front part carries the electronic components and reconnaissance instruments. Near the village of Klokot, we downed yet another unmanned plane, type CL-289 Piver turbojet engine. It was downed immediately upon its launching from a plane. The optical TV camera and the instrument for relay of video materials are partially damaged. We also located film with some material on it. With our almost daily bombing or downing of these unmanned planes, Pristina Corps prevents the actions of the NATO aggressor, who has to withdraw from our anti-aircraft units and thus send these unmanned planes. Unmanned planes are eyes of combat air force because they give information to the planes for military targets, but in this case, failing, thus leaving the aggressor to resort to assaults on civilian targets and crimes against humanity. Federal Defense Minister Pavle Bulatović gave an interview to the Greek paper Eleftherotypia, saying that the unity of our people, army and leadership are extremely high, and that our army has preserved fully its capability and readiness to defend the territorial integrity of our country. Pursuant to the decree of the Supreme Command of the Army of Yugoslavia, more units continued to withdraw today from Kosovo. Here is the report of our correspondent. I came this morning to give you a recognition for your heroic and responsible conduct in defending your country, to thank you for the defense of the honor and dignity of our fatherland. This is also the day of the security of our armed forces, and I wish that all such future days and years be safe for all of us. I wish you a good return to your homes. The army members and conscripts who were in Kosovo fulfilled their holy task. They kept the protection, they kept the safety of the Serbian people and Serbian country. We come back to our homes, but we also are ready for new victories. This unit has come back, and we are grateful to the Supreme Command and to your own command. We are ready that, if necessary, we go back to Kosovo in much greater numbers. But we wish you peace, peace return home, but if necessary, we will come back in much greater number. At today's briefing at the Ministry of Defense of England, John Speller stated that the capital of Kosovo, Pristina, is a ghost city, that the shops used to be full, but now they're completely empty. That this is just an ordinary lie, one more lie you can see from the picture of Pristina from today. This is what Pristina looks like today in the morning hours. Although the goal of the aggressor is by daily bombardment and destruction of civilian targets to paralyze the life in Kosovo, they have failed. The supply with basic grocery needs is, given the circumstances, satisfactory. Daily deliveries of bread, milk products, hygienic products, and other basic needs. How is the supply here with groceries in the city? It's okay, it's normal. I got some bread, etc. I mean, you can see. I think it's fine. Is this always, every day? Yes, yes. Yes, there is bread, there is milk. What are the prices like? Fine, normal, just as they were. At the marketplace, you can see a greater and greater choice of vegetables and fruits that satisfies our citizens. Despite the bombing, there seems to be everything in the farmers' market. Here you can see spinach and greens. Yes, we have everything. How are the prices? Prices are just as they were before. Nothing has increased. There is enough medicine as well. The main city pharmacy will also supply the areas of Lipljan, Obilić and Uroševac. We appeal to all citizens not to create reserves in medicine because we have enough, and I think we can persevere in this situation to have regular supply. The post office and the telephone terminals work without interruption. With some difficulty, the city and suburban bus lines continue to function. Same applies to public services. But here is what people who live in Pristina say about it. As I can see, you're just coming from shopping. Now you're resting. Yes, we got tired, but we went to the market to buy spinach. You know, we are from Pristina. We were born here. We live well, nobody has touched us, thank God, everything is fine. Tell me, how is the supply with other needs, daily needs? So far, as if nothing happened. We have eggs and beans. We went to the market. The farmer's market is full, there is everything. Yes. How is your life in Pristina? It's fine. We're only afraid of this bombing. This is it. Nobody's touching us. By God, I'm free to go to the market every day. Everything is free, but the children are so afraid of the bombing. They're asking, why are they throwing bombs? We are also afraid, the older ones, let alone the children. And what's your name? Sinan. Sinan Tatali. I'm from Pristina. I was born here. What are you by ethnicity? Albanian. We also visited the youngest ones in the parks and the play yards. We didn't want to interrupt their play. China, as a major world power, demands an immediate end of the bombardment of Yugoslavia and wants to have a constructive role in the process of the political resolution of the Kosovo crisis. This role is manifested in the determination of the Chinese people to oppose the world hegemonistic tendencies and protect the peace. China demands immediate end of the bombardment as a prerequisite for the political solution, stated the president of the Chinese parliament, Li Peng, stressing that every solution must meet Yugoslavs' consent. Li Peng stressed that, however tragic, the bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade helped the Chinese people understand better the hypocrisy of the Western democracy. He rejected the claims of the West that this crime allegedly will not be punished, and that China doesn't want this, to insist on this because it is striving to be a member of the World Trade Organization. Those who state so underestimate Chinese people. China will not bargain with its principles. He warned that the world must remain very alert to the U.S. use of the Organization of the UN as an instrument of its hegemonistic policy. Head of the Chinese diplomacy repeated that as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, China cannot accept the beastly bombing of Yugoslavia. The political prerequisite of any solution is to end the bombing immediately. The Minister of Foreign Affairs also said that the spirit of the Yugoslavs will never be conquered, that the arrogance of the hegemonism of NATO, led by the US, has to take full responsibility for the bombing of the embassy in Belgrade. The mask of US is down. The world must seek a different road to peace and stability, stated the Chinese foreign minister. Chinese press writes that NATO's ongoing refusal to accept Yugoslav peace initiatives confirms that the Western alliance wants to use the Kosovo crisis for its new world strategy. While Yugoslavia withdraws part of its forces from Kosovo, NATO continues to bomb civilian targets and kill civilians. All this confirms that the aggressor doesn't seek solution to Kosovo crisis, but a conquest of the Balkans and further push towards the east. Zhenmin Zhibao stresses that the substance of the hypocritical policy of NATO is shown in this gross violation of a sovereign state and the hooligan attack on the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. Official Moscow observes that the diplomatic initiatives over the past few days have yielded some results. After the return from Helsinki, the special Russian envoy for Yugoslavia, Viktor Chernomyrdin, announced that there were concrete agreements and that on Tuesday in Finland there will be a three-party meeting between President Ahtisaari, Chernomyrdin and the Deputy Secretary of State of the US, Strobe Talbot. The goal is to specify the principles of the political regulation of the crisis and to bring concrete proposals to a subsequent meeting with the Yugoslav leadership. In Helsinki, it was agreed that President Ahtisaari and Viktor Chernomyrdin may travel next week to Belgrade to continue the discussions, which, as Chernomyrdin added, should really result in the end of the NATO bombardment and further push towards initiatives towards peace. We cannot postpone the solution of the conflict. We have to stop the destruction of Yugoslavia, concluded Viktor Chernomyrdin. Russian ambassador to the UN, Sergei Lavrov, warned that it is not possible to reach political agreement as long as there is bombardment. The UN Security Council cannot issue a peace resolution for Kosovo while NATO continues to bomb. The well-known American champion of human rights, Jesse Jackson, once again warned that one should not ignore any move towards diplomacy, nor miss any chance for negotiations that could lead to a political solution of the Kosovo crisis. Speaking about the pointlessness of attacks on Belgrade, Jackson said that it would be just as if US bombed Brooklyn to stop a crisis in Buffalo. Serbs were victorious over Hitler, then Stalin. They said no to Brezhnev. They will not surrender to NATO. NATO has a combat power. The question is, does it have the power to negotiate? Let's respond to the goodwill gesture of President Milosevic. Let's stop the bombing and start building peace. Washington Post writes that there is a growing dissatisfaction in the American public towards Clinton because of the NATO bombing. Washington Post reports the CBS poll, according to which 62% of the people said that Washington must find a solution for Kosovo in dialogue with the Yugoslav leadership. Madeleine Albright criticized a group of congressmen who proposed a peace resolution for the Balkan crisis. 11 congressmen, both Republicans and Democrats, asked for an end of the bombing and transferred the authority to the UN. They accused the White House for conducting several wars, one armed war against Yugoslavia and two cold ones with Russia and China, which has essentially brought into question the efficiency of the foreign policy of Washington. The Indian Prime Minister Vajpayee said that bombardment must end, called upon Washington to stop terrorizing the world and muscle flexing to the rest of the world. United States of America has violated all international norms and are creating unprecedented terror in Yugoslavia. The president of the Committee of the French Assembly in the areas of defense criticized the NATO strategy towards Yugoslavia and accepted the debate initiated by the philosopher Régis Debray towards President Chirac. He said that NATO people have to go, those that are responsible. As reported by the Daily Telegraph, Lord Carrington says that there must be an investigation into the NATO aggression on Yugoslavia. This aggression is a result of superficial decision by superficial leaders Blair and Clinton. With the help of the internet, information has been posted on a web page that NATO is preparing a scenario similar to the Sarajevo market Markale, which should instigate the public to approve of ground forces. In this information, it is stressed that a group of American and German pilots have been doing exercises on airplanes Galeb and Jastreb of the Croatian Air Force that will be subsequently painted and masked as Yugoslav planes that will bomb Albanian refugees in Albania. To accomplish this dark mission, NATO has been moving refugees from border areas in Macedonia and Albania deeper into the territory of Albania. They have stopped reporting on airplane traffic, planes coming and going from those countries. In order to complete this scenario, Christiana Amanpour, the notorious CNN journalist, has already arrived in Albania with her team. Throughout the world, there are ongoing protests against the NATO aggression on Yugoslavia. Today, there are protests in Copenhagen, London, and Zurich. For tomorrow, more protests are scheduled in Geneva, Strasbourg, New York, Toronto, and other cities. Every night, from the beginning of the aggression of NATO against Yugoslavia at the main square in Stuttgart, we have seen numerous protests, and our people are lighting candles to the Western democracy, democracy in whose name an entire nation is suffering. They are lighting candles for those who have been innocent and have been killed during this fight, to our children who have become victims of an unprecedented evil. Special mark to this kind of protest has been given by our youth that has gathered itself into an organization called Target. Usually there are 200 people that gather every night, our people and their friends from Greece, as well as Germany, Russia, etc. Bypassers do not just stand by, they come by, they begin talking, they develop arguments, and the result is that more and more Germans and foreigners join our protesters. In presence of many diplomats, many Yugoslavs who work and live in Spain, in our embassy in Madrid, there was a new exhibition open about the NATO crimes in Yugoslavia. The ambassador of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Ratomir Vico, opened the exhibition. This is nothing else but a genocide over a whole nation, destruction of a country. And this is an aggression that allegedly was undertaken for humanitarian reasons. Numerous diplomats once again expressed their understanding for our struggle. What inspired us the most were the representatives of the Russian, Chinese and India embassy. The substance of the statement was that all attacks have to end, we have to give peace a chance. Peace can be secured only by diplomatic solutions, not bombs.
This Saturday evening at 8 Eastern and Pacific, American Perspectives. First on the program, political satirist P.J. O'Rourke. Then at 8:55, Latina magazine editor-in-chief Patricia Duarte